Hello, students. So the purpose of this is to practice writing complex sentences. And so what the focus is today is to fix incorrectly written complex sentences. So for each sentence you're going to see, there's supposed to be a complex sentence, and some are not. They're either incorrectly written, they might be a compound sentence, it might just be a simple sentence and not complex at all. And you must rewrite these to make them correct. So for the first two, fix a complex sentence, rewrite it to make a correctly written complex sentence. So number one, after I left school yesterday, I went to the gym. Number two, while I was sitting on my couch, I watched Riverdale. So go ahead, rewrite the whole thing, both sentences, and make it correct. Both are wrong or missing something. So go ahead and fix that. Okay, so for each of these sentences, they had the same mistake. They were missing a comma. Now remember, when writing a complex sentence, when you start with a dependent clause, a comma needs to come after it. So after I left school yesterday, that's a dependent clause. It's not a complete thought. After I left school yesterday, what happened after that? We don't know. Well, the answer is I went to the gym. That's how complex sentences work. They combine dependent and independent clauses to complete the thought of a dependent clause. So in that case, the comma goes after yesterday, which is the end of the dependent clause. Likewise for number two, while I was sitting on my couch. What were you doing while I was sitting on my couch? I was watching Riverdale. So therefore the comma goes after couch because that's the dependent clause. So same thing, rewrite these two sentences to make them complex. When I went to my cousin's wedding, I danced all night. I ate French toast for breakfast, comma, while I was at the hotel on Sunday morning. So go ahead and fix these. So in this case, the first one is very similar to those first two. When I went to my cousin's wedding is a dependent clause, so a comma comes after wedding. I danced all night is the independent clause. Now, in the second sentence, this one starts with an independent clause. I ate French toast for breakfast. The conjunction is while, and then the dependent clause is while I was at the hotel on Sunday morning. So therefore, no comma is needed. So I also wanted to remind you, dependent clauses start with subordinate conjunctions, those awubis words. When and while are both of them. So when you look at number one, the conjunction when is all the way at the beginning of the sentence because it's the dependent clause starting the sentence. Because the conjunction is all the way at the beginning, the sentence is kind of like this. So if we stick a comma after the dependent clause, right, it brings the sentence back to normal, back to level, because the comma helps connect since the conjunction's all the way at the beginning. Whereas in number two, the conjunction's in the middle, so the sentence is even. We don't need a comma, that's going to throw things off, right? The while's there because we end with a dependent clause, the sentence stays even. So try again with these two. Julia watched TV, comma, because she finished her homework. Number two, Evelyn fell asleep, comma, while she was watching the exciting movie. So go ahead and rewrite these sentences to make them correctly complex. So both have the same mistake. There should be no comma. Julia watched TV and Evelyn fell asleep. Those are both independent clauses. Those are both complete sentences. Because she finished her homework while she was watching the exciting movie, both of those are dependent clause. Because and while are subordinate conjunctions that start the dependent clause. So in that case, no comma needed because the conjunction's right there in the middle. Everything's nice and level. All right, go ahead and fix these two sentences. While Matthew practiced his foul shots, Danny watched politely. Sophia drove the car since Presley needed to sleep. So go ahead and fix these. All right, so in the first one, hope you picked up again that while is one of those subordinate conjunctions. So while Matthew practiced his foul shots is the dependent clause with the comma that needs to come after shots. And then Danny watched politely is our independent clause. Whereas in number two, Sophia drove the car is the independent clause. Since Presley needed to sleep is the dependent clause. Again, since the dependent clause is second, since is the conjunction, there's no comma after car. All right, fix these sentences. While she was running, Nature ran circles around Kelsey. Riley ate an apple after school ended. So go ahead and look at these two. All right, so number one, while she was running is our dependent clause, so there needs to be the comma there. Nature ran circles around Kelsey is the independent clause. Whereas in number two, there's nothing wrong with it. Trick one. Did you get it? Did you realize that there was nothing wrong with that? I hope you did. I hope you got that there was nothing wrong with that one. All right, some final questions before we finish. Explain the two different ways to write a complex sentence. So what are the two different ways to write a complex sentence? So here are your answers. So you start a sentence with a dependent clause, and you would use a comma for this. So dependent clause, comma, independent clause. Or you would start a sentence with an independent clause. In this case, you do not use a comma. It will be independent clause, then dependent clause. So when do you use a comma with a complex sentence? Answer this question. You would use it when you start a sentence with a dependent clause. Thank you all very much.